and happy week 4, halfway point in our classroom. And I hope you're all doing well this week. Week 4 is all about IEPs, and IEPs are very important, the individualized educational plans for certain students in your classroom. And I've put some lists up on my computer just to remind you and review with you that an IEP could be for any student with learning disabilities, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, emotional disorders, cognitive challenges, autism, hearing impairment, visual impairment, speech or language impairment, developmental delay, or physical disabilities. So those are a lot of things that are being covered by an IEP. And it's very important as a general education teacher, if you are a general education teacher, or you're anybody on the faculty or staff, that you know what an IEP is and you make sure that it's being implemented. Because by law, school districts can be sanctioned legally for not following an IEP. It's a child's right to be protected by this individual education plan. And if parents don't feel that their child is being supported through the plan, there's hearings, there's all sorts of things that happen. We want parents to keep their children in our district, in our classroom, and we want to provide that support for these students. And what I've seen over the years is that there's many teachers that, they've got a lot on their plate. They have a lot going on, or they have a lot of different IEPs in their classroom, and they're being asked to go to IEP review meetings constantly, and a lot of people don't go. They don't go, and they don't find out exactly what their responsibility is. And by doing that, you can put yourself in harm's way. So you always want to make sure when a student has an individual education plan that you know your responsibilities as that child's teacher, exactly what you need to do and what you need to implement. And sometimes what happens is with these IEPs that students can be offered so many services that they can be out of the classroom quite a bit, and then grades can suffer because of that too, and then it becomes overwhelming. So you have to figure out, you kind of have to, when you go in with the team, then you can sit down and you can give your input about what's working, what's not working, what goals are realistic. And each time that's reviewed, goals can be assessed and reassessed and changed, depending on what the input is of the team. And you are a valuable member of the team. So it's really important to know your IEPs, and it's really important to know the IEP process. And so that's something that you're going to be looking at this week and talking about in your discussion board. I just wanted to go over that very briefly with you. And there's all sorts of great sites besides the things that I gave you guys that you could look up and find information to make sure that you are on task. And of course, you could talk to the school psychologist or anything, but there's tons of information on it. So when you're looking at an IEP, and here's just another little list, that I have that I just want to go over with you really quickly, is you should know what is the student's disability. You want to make sure that you know the basics of what that means to have this disability and how it's going to affect the student, because that's going to drive your teaching and how you're going to make the best experience you possibly can for that student in your classroom. You're also going to want to know who the case manager is. At schools, especially big schools, the cases of students on IEPs are split up between different teachers. So you want to make sure who's your main contact person and who you're going to be reporting to. And this person's, in charge of making sure that the IEP is followed and should be working closely with you regarding the student. And I always just kind of send little update emails to my IEP case managers when I get a chance, or when I note something in the classroom, or when I note a concern. And that way, the team's constantly playing together. And also you have an email paper trail of documentation of, that you're talking to the team and that you're making note on this, and that you're asking for help, assistance, or guidance along the way. And then, as I said before, it's so important that you know your responsibilities, because you are legally responsible to make sure that you meet them. So you've got to know what accommodations are you supposed to provide, and if you don't like the accommodations for what you're doing in English, math, science, or history, It doesn't matter. You still have to do them. But you can go to the next team meeting of the IEP and say, give your input that you don't think that that particular goal or accommodation is what the student needs, and that you think that maybe to meet the goal they need to have this or this or this. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to agree with you, but it means at least that you can put your input in as a team member, and if people do agree, then it's going to be added to that IEP. And so remember, when you're looking at an IEP, you're not just looking at yourself for your classroom, you're also looking in the overall picture for teachers that are going to come after you. So you want to take all that into consideration as you're being part of the team. And then, were there any recommendations in previous reports that you could utilize to better assist the child? So that's what I'm talking about. You kind of have to look at the overview of everything. Excuse me, 1 minute. Oh, boy, you okay? Here, sweetie. There you go. My pup was wanting to go outside. So, so you want to have a basic understanding of the process. You want to have a basic understanding of the special education process. And I'm not saying basic as, like minor, but you should have an understanding of the process as you go through and as you're dealing with your students and as you're helping them. And, a lot of times, like I said, like with the testing, how I do the testing with the writing and the audio and the visual. Sometimes what's great is that you can put accommodations into your classroom so that students don't have to go to their case manager, to their special education teacher to do some activities. Because sometimes in IEPs it will be written, can test in a different room or can do this. But if you look at the modifications, and if it works with the IEP and the student and the parent and the special education teacher, then you can provide a lot of opportunities in your classroom that can take some of the stress off the student as well and not be constantly sending them out of the room. But you can't force that issue unless it's okay with the IEP. So, you need to think about those things. We've been seeing a lot lately, especially in high school, and you'll have to let me know if you're doing elementary or middle school, if you're seeing it as much, but we're seeing a ton of 504s these days for anxiety. And it's unbelievable, the epidemic of anxiety of students just feeling overwhelmed in high school. And so we're actually doing things now within our school to kind of, things that we don't have to do, but that we're adding to make things a little bit better for our students with their 504s. So in my classroom on Thursdays, we have Calm Club. And it's a place where the kids can come and they can relax. They talk about tips to help them move through stress. The school even has people come in that do, breathing exercises. They had yoga last week. So, and it's open to all students on the campus where they can come and they can take a moment and relax. The dance teacher at our school has actually spoken to the administration about adding yoga to PE. And so it looks like we're going to be having some yoga classes next year as well, which is wonderful. But once again, when you're looking at those 504s, if a student has a 504 for anxiety, what are they doing at home to address this issue? What are they doing with medical professionals or psychological professionals to address this issue? You need to look at all of those things. And, and we want to make sure that these children are getting what they need to handle this. And, are they being taught coping skills? If you see something where they're not being taught coping skills or they're not going to counseling, yet they have this 504 for anxiety, then how are you going to address that? So that's why it's important to be really involved in these processes, because they do affect you, they do affect your classroom, and legally you are bound to make sure that IEP or that 504 is being addressed. I am already at almost 10 minutes. I'm sure you're tired of me talking. So I'm going to stop there today. And then tomorrow I'm going to post a video about the discussion boards from week 2 and week 3 and talk a little bit about that. So I want you to have a wonderful day, wonderful teaching day, vote, and I will be back on talking at you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.